La Lanterna, a spotlight in Italian football, is a podcast that dives into the beautiful game seen from the eyes of two fans from the oldest team in Italy's point of view. My name is Fabrizio Cardone, Canadian and Genovese, together with my friend Matt Killen, an American-born and Genoa fan. Every week, we'll tell you all you need to know about the only team you need to know about, Genoa CFC. Plus, we'll have guests and provide updates from around the magical world of Italian football. Benvenuti everyone to La Lanterna podcast. This is episode number 30. Welcome to everyone. Ciao, Matt. How are you?
Cannot believe we are at episode 30. That is certifiably insane to me, but I'm excited.
Certifiably insane. You're right. It's almost a year. No, not almost. We still have a couple months still to go. Like, was it April or whatnot? So we're going to probably end up wrapping season one at the end of this Serie B season itself. Mm-hmm. But yeah. So 2 matches after 4 days. We had a double episode, and now we're going to talk about the match against Ascoli. Well, how did that feel?
I don't want to say I couldn't watch it, but it was one of the things I mentioned on the group chat afterwards is that it was really difficult to watch. I think a couple of days and having some time to process it, it doesn't feel as bad as it did at the time, but I just kind of felt like there was this big expectation, Gilardino's coming in, obviously, we needed a breath of fresh air. There's some calls for, a manager who's Italian, if you want to read into that, or if you don't, whatever. But we needed to start getting results because we're starting to fall away. And this was a game against an opponent that's not that far away from us in the table. It's a kind of test of our might, if you will, a little bit. And it felt like whatever we saw in the midweek was a mirage or something, because there was none of that creativity. Aramu looked like being another wasted signing again, like he did for the entire rest of the season before was it Wednesday or Thursday's match. And as a whole, we were not able to create. I thought one of the members of Genoa Club New York had said it well. I think Casper, shout out to Casper in the Genoa Club New York group. It doesn't seem like the manager is the number one problem with the squad when you look at what's happening here, because I think we're looking at a new manager, we're looking at a new formation, and we're still not really seeing that creative connection. We're still seeing, even Coda didn't look up to his best. What did you think, Fabry? Am I overreacting to this? Is this too many superlatives? Am I being too negative here?
Good points. Mixed feelings around that. I have to say that formation is, yes, different, yet not that different, in a sense that, thought that about several times, but essentially it looks like Gilardino's formation is more like on a 4-3-3. The downside to that is we don't have the right players. In fact, he did even say that we are lacking on the wing side.
Thank you. I'm glad somebody has finally said this.
So definitely we'll have to see something happen in January. A lot of people are mentioning even all the way up to 5 new players. I don't think we need 5 new players, but I think that if we catch those 3 key aspects, and I don't know if we want to dig also into the possibility of which position itself is necessary. Well, there's one that is a given, which is the left back, but in someone like a playmaker type of thing, because if you look at all our midfield, they're kind of like all duplications with different styles and whatnot, but they're not that different.
Yes.
Even with the return of Sturaro, that even makes it even more.
It reinforces it. Absolutely. No, totally does.
Yeah, like Badel, Strootman, and Frendrup a little bit too.
Mhm.
And Sturaro now too. They're kind of like Frendrup is a bit different compared to the other three, but the other three are basically three peas in a pod. I don't know.
Yeah.
But and maybe some wingers, maybe some strikers. I don't know. Some people are not too fancy now and starting to talk bad about Coda, because before it was all, Genoano is the typical Mugugnone, but everybody was complaining about it's not Coda's fault, it's Blessing's fault. But now we're seeing with Gilardino that he's using them as a pure striker, that he's still lethargic, slow, and whatnot. Is he in a lower state of form? Maybe, perhaps too many games. I don't know. He's the older too, right? So it's a little bit iffy on that one too. Do I think you're a little bit on the negative side? Probably. I think we did see a breath of fresh air on the match against Südtirol. Whether it was because there was something happening in the locker room, heavy air, let's call it that way, or not. Some were obvious, as we mentioned in the last podcast, are a little bit happier that Blessing is not there anymore, and definitely people that are not even players anymore, i.e., Marchetti.
Oh my God.
But I think the influx that we had with Ascoli is not necessarily due to the fact that we're a bad team. I just think that, first of all, playing at Ascoli and Frosinone with our guest that we're going to have shortly after, that is going to talk about it, it's a very tough field to play at. And they have given trouble to a lot of bigger teams as well. If you even look at them in the standings, they've never been in the lower part of the standings. They've always stayed in the middle. And I think they played the match that they wanted. They wanted to tie, and that's what they got. And essentially, that's how I see this match. So ultimately, I think that 1 point from Ascoli is a good point. It's not great, but it's definitely a good point.
Well, I think that's kind of like the cold water analysis of the thing, is that, like, when you look at it after the fact, we went away to a team that is a good team in Serie B. This is not a bad team. This is a capable team in Serie B. We did not perform very well, I think, is a pretty objective statement. But at the same time, we didn't deserve to lose the match. And we came out of it with a point. So in the grand scheme, if this were us in Serie A and we were competing and trying to survive, this would be one of those, we got another precious point. That's not how we're seeing it, because we want to see results and we want to see change. And we're concerned now about continuing to drop points, and now being 9 points off the leaders in Serie B, which is something that I think you would have told any Genoa fan that would be the case in the middle of December of this season. There'd be quite a lot of worry from them. And I think rightly so. So in the end, it's a result you can understand. We played Südtirol maybe in a somewhat of an emotionally charged match with our managers changing over. We got the result. Südtirol, for their part, to get to say, also not that far off from where Ascoli are in the standings. So it wasn't like that was a cakewalk either, even though perhaps at the beginning of the season you would have assumed that would be the case. And it just, it's a difficult to get 2 wins on the spin like that when you're a brand new manager coming in and setting your squad. What I feel pretty strongly about is I think you're starting to see, and to your point about some of the fan comments on Coda, and, okay, maybe people are out of the realm of being right about this or being too pessimistic or something. But this is sort of the unfortunate process of underperforming teams. The first thing you're doing is, okay, we've got all these outfield players. It's a little bit easier to replace one person than all 26 or however many we're carrying in the squad. So you fire the manager. And then when you fire the manager, you look at the players and you look at the way that everything's changing. And then you say, okay, now these guys are in a different system. And if you see the same results again, then the answer becomes clear. Well, maybe it wasn't exactly the manager that was always the problem. And I think this is part of what made the Blesson thing a little bit sad. I know we were kind of talking about it for a while, and I think it was definitely the right decision to sack him, unfortunately, because of how the results were coming in and what was going on. But, you know, if you believe that there was an actual club idea behind what Blesson was trying to do within the squad, and we abandon that post now for bench effectively, you know, an incomplete squad, it sort of has a different impact perhaps than we just needed a change in manager and that was what was going on. We've been talking for weeks on this podcast about how there are absolutely no, forget even wingers, we don't even have like a left midfielder or a right midfielder. Like we have, to your exact point, we have this strange constellation of players who are kind of like defensive midfielders, but by the way, not all of them are exactly. And then, like, because I kind of put Portanova and Sturaro in the same category, where it's like Sturaro is maybe a little bit more defensive than Portanova is, but neither of them are necessarily either one or the other. And then you've got, you know, this strange collection of players that are not really number 10s, but we're playing as central attacking midfield players. And there's like 5 of them on this team for some weird reason. And they're, you know, we talked also on the group chat about who's to blame for that. And I can't say that I know because I wasn't in the room when these decisions were made. But it's a weird collection of players. That's what it is.
Let's hope that in January, whomever is going to make that decision, because there's a lot of conversations happening on social media, in all the chats that we're probably both of us watching in different chats and whatnot, for the fact of everybody's pointing fingers to Spores, even though they're not understanding that
I was
Spores
too.
is not the first person that is going to make the decisions. He's like overarching a larger project, which is the 777 Sports, which is looking at the 5-6 teams that we talked about last time. Ottolini, which is technically the sports director, is the person that we've seen when they presented him, but then since then I've never seen or heard anything.
He's gone into some strange crevice and never appeared again.
So I don't know what's happening there, but let's hope that in January they put the hands in the pocket, but mostly put also their heads to play and not have internal struggles with, I want regular players versus Serie B, mature players or whatnot, but the right ones for, yes, the immediate, definitely that's the bigger focus, but I don't know. I mean, you can both challenge the topics of, do you want players ready for now only, or you want also something for the long term? So that's going to be the struggle too, also because players are not going to accept just 6 months contracts, and they're wanting obviously something longer. Even just look at Coda's situation itself, right?
Well, I mean, this is where it becomes really tricky, and as a fan, I think it's really hard to decide how to think about something like this, because like we can't really accept anything other than going up and moving on to the next level. But I also feel like to some degree, how do we make the right move for the club? Because I think when you look at the way we're going to start signing players, and one of the concerns that could happen, I believe pretty firmly that there are a very alarmingly few amount of players in this squad today that belong in Serie A. I think that's a fact.
That'll be a problem that we can look at in June, right?
Perhaps, but the point that I'm trying to make, I suppose, is that let's say we do get promoted, and that is the case. What we are looking at again is, for what probably is going to be the 6th successive season, a summer turnover period where we're bringing in all of these players and we're starting from scratch, and we're giving our manager a month and a half to figure it out before the season begins. And then we say, let's hope for the best. And I think it's Where I'm concerned right now, and I'm getting ahead of myself a little bit because, like, obviously this season, there's a lot of season to go, and we don't want to be stuck in the mire of Serie B for another year. But I'm really worried that what I think happened in this offseason was we knew we had a lot of projects to get done. We had a lot of debt to get rid of. We had a lot of player contracts we needed to release ourselves from, and we also needed to strengthen our squad. All of those things happened. But we didn't necessarily balance our squad in the way I think maybe we would have expected to see happen. And we also, unfortunately, like the signings that were made, for whatever reason, I think most of them have just not panned out. And Coda is probably the priciest and shiniest of all of them. But Coda is also an example of a player. Lecce are in Serie A, and they were happy to let their leading goal scorer go. This is a guy that probably is not a Serie A goal getter. And so we're paying for him right now this season with the idea that he's going to fire us back up to Serie A. But he's not going to keep us in Serie A, probably. And so, like, you start looking at all these players that are in this squad, and it's like, Jesus, like, we're going to have to sell these guys. And how are we going to even make money at this point on some of the things that we're doing? And I think it's a real concern. And you have to wonder who's making the decisions. It's very possible it's Ottolini. There are some, I think, that are saying, well, this is Blessin's team. I'm not so sure about that. I mean, for me, the reason why I pretty strongly disagree with the Blessin take, if you watch the way Blessin's teams were playing, he wanted to do some crazy, like, total football shit where, like, every player is pressing and Albert Goodmanson is in his own end on one play and all the way in the opposing end and the other play. And basically these crazy track star players that are really all over the pitch. And we've signed Coda, who's like 33, Strootman, who's basically retired. All these other players like Ilsanker's career is over after this team. He's not playing. Maybe Saudi Arabia he goes to. Like that, those players are not gegenpressing all-stars. None of those guys do that. So I don't necessarily believe that, like, that's where we were. And I also think it's a little bit, you'd have to really give a lot of credence to Blessin to think that when he came in January last year, in 2 weeks, he wrote the entire transfer policy for Genoa. So for me, when you look at it that way, the blood kind of does look like it's on Sports' hands. I don't know. I wasn't there again. Like, Ottolini could have been making the decisions this summer. I think the worrying thing as a whole is if you believe in the 777 concept, if you're putting that guy in charge, and if he really did make those transfers, then I think the business venture as a whole is probably not in a good way, because you need to really make sure if you're investing in these other places, like, let's say, God forbid, you see a series of relegations from the other 777 properties, that changes our outlook. Unfortunately, that's part of how this whole dynamic works. And so you kind of need everything to be working in concert. And I can only speculate on who made those decisions and why they made them, but looking at it right now.
While I was about to tell you, let's worry about that in June and July, because it's more of a summer.
No, it totally is.
You're right that certain concerns need to be considered anyways in January because of the transfer. And actually, shouldn't even be thinking about it in January. We should be thinking about it now, because then in January, you just want it to happen and not close it on the 31st of January, per se,
exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
No, what I was going to say is, like, there's also a rumor, which tying back to the fact of, no player is going to come for 6 months and whatnot. There is a rumor. I don't know how legit it is, because how many times have I said that a lot of rumors are just coming from journalists just because they love to go and look at statistics or whoever's ending their contract and whoever is available. I'm surprised they didn't do a lineup about, free agents that are readily available and whatnot. The only one that can look credible, also because we've seen him both on the training field and also at the Marassi Stadium last Sunday, is it's only a possible, just putting out there just for comments purposes, but Mimmo Criscito. we need someone like that anyways on the left side. So people are saying, why not?
I would completely think why not is the right thing to say and the right question to ask. And I believe, I mean, if you look at the run of form, there was also some comments that were going on. You know, we weren't actually that bad at creating chances at the beginning of the season. And when you consider the players we had, I don't think it's crazy to say, well, we've been missing a real playmaker on the left-hand side. And so having Mimo come back into the squad, I think would definitely be a benefit.
Left foot, tactically like strong, sure, old, similar to your Strootmans and your Ilsanker and whatnot.
Right.
But nevertheless, it's still some solidity that we can have there on the left. I'm just putting there as conversation here, right? And maybe at the same time, still get like a long-term type of player that can be his sub, or if Criscito has his own age and he may not be able to play the end of the season entirely because of whatever the reason, and you still have someone that you're going to be grooming for afterwards. Like even look at Frendrup. When he first started, he didn't start. Then only after a while, then he started to be showing to be this phenomenal player that we all learned to love him.
That's right.
So maybe that is another it's just an option that I'm putting out there as an opportunity, not to be closed-minded like I've already started to see about people saying, no, we don't want him back because he was this or he was that, he was friends with Preziosi and whatnot. Like, I don't know, we don't know, we're only guessing a whole bunch of this stuff.
Right.
And I know, I don't know, I'm not saying I want him, I'm not saying that, but I wouldn't close the doors if that was an option.
I wouldn't be at all upset if he were to be in the squad. I think we need something there. And I guess like the point that I am most concerned about when it comes to January is I think we will be worse off if we make reactionary signings that are meant to address the situation right now than if we are looking really specifically at something that will better our team as a whole. And Mimo is a weird gray line because I think similarly, maybe Mimo stays, maybe he doesn't at the end of the season. But he's also very talented. He understands the team. He understands the players. I think you're right that he could be a type of mentor of sorts if we needed one. And so in those regards, I think there are a lot of really good arguments for him, not to mention his actual technical capabilities. And by the way, let's not forget that wonder goal that he scored for Toronto only a few months ago. So it's not like this guy doesn't have it anymore. So yeah, I mean, I like the thought of it. I guess
obviously, will he be that left wing that can run up and back and forth from the sides?
Right.
Absolutely not.
Right.
But food for thought. Let's see also what happens in January. Definitely, these are one of the many rumors that are going to start flowing here, right, left, right, and center. Going back to our match, I think at the end it was we didn't have as many shots on target as we usually did, but I think the turnaround was due to the fact that we had in front of us like a very, not necessarily a strong opponent, but a tough opponent, which blocked any type of options and whatnot. Even Koda himself, even though he's like in a lower type of form and whatnot, he was totally blocked and said, in fact, he was also subbed and whatnot. Nevertheless, it was a good point, I think. It still showed that we are still unbeaten, at least under Gilardino, when it comes to goals. Chances did come. There was a nice shot. We also almost risked something as well, that hence the best player of the match actually goes to Sabelli, in my opinion, based on that save that he did almost on the line. Mm-hmm. But other than that, it was sort of a boring match itself, but I think it still showed that there is unity, there is still strength in the team. It just needs a lot of more Gilardino time. Essentially, that's what I wanted to say.
Yeah, I could see that. I mean, I looked at it a little bit and I thought that the quality was lacking, and maybe it was a little bit too negative, but it's second match. It's a tough away match. The players probably all exhausted. There were very few changes, I don't think, between the Südtirol match and this one. So there's a lot of stuff there, and we got a point. It wasn't like we weren't positive at all. We did have a couple chances, but it wasn't what I would have wanted to have hoped for. And I think probably most Genoa fans felt like we maybe didn't need to spend 2 hours watching that game after after seeing how it actually ended up. But
no, exactly. It has to happen. The points have to come. It's 1 point. Let's grab it. Let's move on. Next match will be against Frosinone, which is going to be a tough one. We'll talk more about it with our guest coming up. And then the one after that on Boxing Day will be against Fabry, which is, in my opinion, on the paper, even tougher than the Frosinone one, even though it wouldn't look like that if you look at the standings.
Yeah.
What should I say? The match day 17. What's your comments around that?
Well, I mean, there were some results for us, some against us, I suppose. We see ourselves still, I think we're down to 4th in the table in the end with how some of the actual matches had shaken out. It was good to see Frosinone dropping a point. So I think that's a positive, of course. Regina getting a win late in the match was probably the biggest blow on our side, just given that we're trying to kind of keep pace and also would not be that far out from second place, which is also automatic promotion. And so seeing that result kind of go against us was a little bit of a bummer, but I mean, you saw again, Pisa had a good showing on Monday night. They're looking like they're really resurgent on their way. And again, it just seems like we keep stacking up against each other. There's a big cluster.
It's so easy to go up as it's so easy to drop down. To your point, so what happened? A quick review of match day 17. We have Cagliari that is actually a point behind us, if I'm not mistaken.
That's unbelievable to me.
Was that?
That's crazy to me.
I know, like they were almost, I'm not saying that they were like in the bottom, but it felt like they were going to just be another Parma where they're going to remain down there while they're coming back up. They have a strong squad too. Remember, let's not forget that. Yeah. And even though they did win against Perugia, but nevertheless, it was a win and that's important. Mm-hmm. And Südtirol, which we just met during the week, tied against Ternana, which is a strong team coming back again. Venezia finally won against our poor friends from Cosenza. Then obviously our match, Ascoli Genoa 0-0. Spal Palermo, another stalemate, not stalemate, but it's another tie, 1-1. So no winners, no losers. Benevento Cittadella, that I was keeping an eye on that one also for our friend Jake, where keep getting chances and whatnot, but Benevento with the Cannavaro, quite a lot of polemica, as we say in Italian, like a lot of complaints against Benevento and whatnot, not deserved, not well deserved. Cittadella is a little bit in a similar situation as we are with respect to results and whatnot. Yeah. Como loses now to this Regina, the one that you just mentioned about, where we were not expecting that. We were not hoping that, not necessarily expecting, right, but definitely not hoping that. And then Bari, which won 4-1 against Modena in 10 men and continuing to score even in 10 men. It was just like, what's happening there?
That was crazy.
Super happy about the result of Frosinone Pisa, which ended 0-0, but I saw snippets of the match and I saw a very strong Pisa. And then lastly, surprise, I did not see it, I have to admit, but Brescia loses at home, which we were expecting them actually to be just at our tail, but they actually lose at home against Parma. Parma waking up, which is just, I'm happy for them, mind you, right?
Right. No, I mean, that's another squad. I mean, we're like right behind us right now in the points as well. So you start to see all these teams that are just, you look over your shoulder and everyone's right there. So
exactly. And before we go to the break, Matt, I wanted to quickly say two quick things. So the first one is, you mentioned a little bit earlier about Portanova, which I want to wrap quickly from the conversation that we had on the last podcast of the situation, delicate situation, whatnot. Actually, it came out, I would say official, because it came from the words of Gilardino that he is not going to call him up, I'm thinking, anymore.
Yeah.
Until the situation gets solved. So that's a positive thing with respects to the fact of the delicate situation.
Agreed.
And I also was reading a comment from a lawyer saying that, as we say in Italian, la parte lesa. So the one that gets not the opposite of benefit. The one that gets harm on this situation is also Genoa. Let's not forget that. But let's wait the 3 degrees, and whatever happens, happens. And lastly, which is but not less important, is essentially that there was this very quiet news that came out, I'm going to say 2-3 days ago, where a certain gentleman called Jacopo Pulcini, he is he is the new brand and marketing manager for Genoa. Small, this news came because he mentioned that on his LinkedIn, actually out of all the websites, LinkedIn, so a job site and whatnot, about this new role that he's going to be taking over. He is a Genoa fan, but he worked as a brand strategist at Inter. So the reason why I'm mentioning this is we know, and I've been talking also with some fans that, and you and I even as well, with respect to the store, the issues, the fact of not being able to buy properly what we want to buy and whatnot, and even this fan that I was talking with, sorry, his name is I Got Nothing on, that's his sort of name on Twitter, and essentially saying like, how can I buy anything if it's only this stuff? Can I even get a jersey with a name and a number? And I was just like covering my hands off for my eyes and saying, oh my God, like what, this is like a horrible question, because I feel like ashamed about it. And as you were saying also before, the fact that I wanted to buy a mug, I wanted to buy, I don't know, like a stupid sweater, or like, I don't know, a keychain or stuff like that. You can't even buy that stuff.
My collar for my dog, like all these things. Remember, they had the promotional video that came out like at the end of the season last year, and they had people like wearing like Genoa backpacks and stuff.
Yeah,
the streetwear. We can shop all this stuff, and then like none of it. I mean, so I reacted differently to you. And first of all, props to this guy. I'm happy for him. I'm glad that he found a job. But like, the only thing I guess I'll say is I sort of hope we don't become Inter.
Well, in a way, I do. I wouldn't mind a triplete winning champions.
No, okay. Let me rephrase that. There's like this.
Remember, there's a star here to win, right?
This maybe is ironic coming from like the American fan who also like spent several years working in sports marketing and still kind of does today. But like, I think that there is something sort of odious about this new sports experiential idea stuff. Like, I'll just say right now, Fabry, if we see fan token on the Genoa kits, I'm not buying them. Like, I'd be so pissed. Like, I know that there's all these opportunities and there's things, and people want to talk about NFTs and all these things, and I'm not a person that's against like the future of the internet or whatever we want to even call that, but I just feel like we need something a lot more simple. We need a team that is built for the future and is set up foundationally to do things right. Right now, that basically means we need players who are actually available for the spots that we need to play, which is remarkable that even with our squad and the large amount of players we had on loan last year, we didn't have anyone that fit these winger positions. And of course, we need to refill the left back position. We probably need to look at the attacking position. We need an e-commerce site that works, but I can tell you right now, you can go to just about any club in the English Football League. You can go to 4th tier club. You could go to a non-league club in some cases. They will have a better working site for a shop than we will. Our shop is terrible. Our replica jerseys literally are stickers for the logo, and they're charging you 75 euro to buy a shirt with maybe a nice pattern that has a sticker for a badge on it.
I'm going to quote again, sorry, quickly, but I'm going to quote again this I Got Nothing, a fan of ours. And he basically said, it just needs a little more than what it is. And he's right. And that's why I brought up this this new director, or whatever you want to call him, because I'm hoping. He even added, sorry, what I want to also to add was the fact that he said that maybe we made a mistake with Castor, because he mentioned another team, I can't remember who now, in the UK, where we should have done a little bit more digging, where they're not offering much, even these customized type of jersey, whatnot, even for them. The Rangers, maybe, I can't remember, and I don't want to quote a team.
Oh, really? Glasgow Rangers.
And I was surprised when he said that, in a way pleased, because that means that it's not our issue, it's actually Castor's issue. So let's see what they're going to do with this new person. It might not take day overnight. I did speak to someone at the club, and that they did apologize to the fan. I mean, I'm not the one that is going to portray this message to all the world, but essentially he did apologize for what was happening, and to the fan base and whatnot. But they are aware of the situation, and they're definitely working on it.
Yeah, I mean,
I want to believe that, and I truly think they had something before, so they can only work with getting what they had before. So I can only see improvements from what we have today.
Well, there's the bar is very low right now. Yeah, I mean, look, I would love for us to have a place where we can actually buy things. That would be good. And I just hope that we don't become this marketing vehicle in some way. I think what makes Genoa such an interesting thing, there are elements of the legacy of the club that market itself. The fact that it's the oldest club in Italy, the fact that there is a real connection to a really important city in the country, and maybe you can say it's not as glamorous as it is now or whatever, but the heritage of the club itself, the connection with the club to the region of Liguria and the traditions that come with those things and everything else that goes along with it, those things are marketable things. It would be a little bit of a shame for us to be, maybe I'm being too old-fashioned with this, but I don't know if we necessarily want to win over fans with our NFT program that we're doing or something like that, or giving fans a percentage ownership stake. I mean, I don't know if I actually told you this. I was a part-time owner technically of Italian Football Club about 5 years ago.
Oh, really?
So there's this club. I'm actually pretty sure you've never heard of them, but they're called CS Lebowski. Have you heard of? Does this ring any bells?
CS Lebowski. No.
So they never have played. I don't even think they've made it to Serie D. They've almost
better CS.
C dot Centro Storico Lebowski. I think is actually what it is. And it was I came across them, I think, from some silly article from The Guardian or something in 2015. And they still are, I think, a club that operated as a semi-professional club outside of Fiorentina. And it was wholly run by basically just a bunch of people. And
Florence.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, yes, sorry. Florence, not Fiorentina. Their way of sort of fundraising for the club, because it was incredibly grassroots, they were using basically a pitch that was, I think, a school pitch or something, and that's where they were playing their games, but they could rent it out. They would sell membership passes, and for that membership pass, which was $20 or something, you would have season tickets to go to the games, and you would have effectively a board right. So you could say when they're going to vote for things, whether or not you approve of it. And everything from like, this person is now, going to be in charge of the marketing. This person is in charge of the budgeting. This is the direction for the club. Like they would hold these meetings and you could basically be a part of them. And I thought this might be a cool thing. Let me try to be involved in this. And I ended up doing it for a season. I didn't stick on it too much, in part because like you're getting really, really long messages in Italian and then they're translating into English, and, also not being able to be in person when these actual town halls are being held, because they were held in like actual rooms with actual people in them. But I thought that the concept was interesting and something that maybe could be brought over into the US or into other places where you're trying to build more of a direct connection to a club, because I do think, at least as a foreign fan, that's one of the things where there's more dissonance when you're trying to become like a fan of a team, because it's like you could either pick these really, really uber successful clubs. And I'm one to talk because I'm also a supporter of Arsenal, but like basically like there's a reason why people only are selecting Inter or Milan or Juventus when they decide to follow Italian football, mainly when you're in the US or in North America. And I think this concept of maybe trying to make it something where you have more of a connection and you're somehow more involved is an interesting idea, and I like the idea, but I also just don't want this to become somehow some sort of gimmick, and now we have this like for-profit thing and there's not substance to it and people aren't really involved in it for the same reasons. And so I'm probably being a little bit too cynical for the whole thing, but I do think there's a lot in the club itself. As much as like some of the old traditions, I feel weird being fonder for traditions because I've really not been a fan of Genoa for all that long. It's 6 years or so. You kind of don't want to see those things go away. I would hate to see like the Gradinata cleaned up, as example. I'd hate to see them put seat backs in the Ferraris, like things like that are modernizations of the game that would represent a monetary value and other things. And it feels kind of like a move like this is a step in that direction, and that's why I'm resistant to it.
But wait, let's see when that happens.
Totally. I'm again jumping ahead like 3 or 4 steps, and I'm assuming a bunch of things that may or may not actually be true. But I just don't want that side of it to be what actually happens, where all of a sudden we become this profit center for a bunch of people that live in Miami, and the actual fan experience of rooting for this club doesn't really resonate in the same way.
Well, to their defense, they did show that they are tied to the roots and they're not going to do drastic changes, but they do want to bring the brand to a different level, which has never been thought about before. So I'm waiting to see what that means. I'm seeing a lot of things happening on the sidelines, like the Portofino thing and the brands that they're using as sponsor. But let's see. Let's wait and see before jumping to fearful conclusions and whatnot.
Do you think because this was also a knee-jerk reaction, one of the things that got shared after the match at Ascoli was some of the social graphics that were put together, which I think is a little harsh, but like the Better Call Coda stuff and the things that were put out when we made all these signings. Do you feel like there's a direction of attention that is in the wrong place with these things? Like, do you think this is distracting or somehow taking away from our ability to properly field a team that can win or
no. I think that, there's different people that are going to be heads for different areas. And I think that let's leave whoever is in charge to do their job. And when we have to complain about someone doing their job wrongfully, we have the right to say that. So we talked about whoever put the team together had some some areas that were not thought well together. So we want to see that now in January. Definitely there's an issue with the marketing aspect, more than the marketing, the actual merchandise aspect. And let's hope that they're going to work on that. They told us that they are very well aware of that issue and they're going to address it. So what I'm trying to say is, like, it takes time. They took over a company, a club that was almost falling into pieces. They definitely do not want to keep that same of structure, and I'm happy for that anyways, but the same structure of the old Italian style football with the sole precedent and you owe me this favor, you owe me that favor and all that shit. And I don't want to see that stuff anymore. So I don't want to go again. A lot of people have forgotten, but a lot of people were happy Genoa got relegated because they hated Genoa. And that can only be given to the precedent of the image and the bad image that was created around Genoa for the last at least 4 to 5 years. So let's give them time. We are relegated, fine. That's the price that is that the cost, the price that is for us to get our shit together. Great. It'll take time. We have issues like left, right, and center. Almost we're at the deep low. So you'll see holes coming out, like water coming into the ship and all that stuff. But as they say, Rome was not built in a day. And I strongly believe we have a foundation behind that is going to do good. And they'll make errors. They have made errors. And, we're very, unfortunately, as a fan base, very harsh. But, I think the answer will also be, let's look at what happens at January. And if they don't do anything, that will give us an indication. If they do something that is going to impact drastically, then we know there is something more than words.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the actions have to be there. And, the brand thing, I get too a little bit like, I also get nervous when it's like, we're going to elevate the brand more than ever has before. It's like, you can do that. You win fucking football games. That's how you do that. You don't lose to.
Let's get to that. We want the start. Remember that.
Those things. But that's really what this is about. And I think like if we're putting resources and time in all these things and we're not really looking at the way we are thinking about this as a whole, and the thing that you worry a little bit, I suppose, about is, we're putting a lot of faith really in, I presume, at least by the way that this structure seems to be set up in terms of how Spores is really understanding and evaluating what's there. And you just hope maybe Zangrillo's more like this than the other guys, but you hope that there's enough knowledge for those who maybe are not footballing people.
True.
To understand.
Let's put it that way too. And for this, I'm going to rest my piece after that. But essentially, we only have 2 transfer markets as a comparison. We have a January from last year,
yep,
and we have a summer, which we already know that there was a little bit of battleship happening behind the scenes, like what I mentioned a couple of podcasts like that. I like to call it, just to define it, the German versus the Italian side. I hope that's not going to happen again, because that's basically going in 2 different directions, and that's hurting more the club rather than helping it. And let's just see what happens with this January transfer market and take it from there.
I think that's fair.
All right, so this is a wrap for the first half. We're going to go to a quick break, and then we're going to have a special guest from Frosinone.
Wow, looking forward to it.
My name is Fabrizio Cardone, and I approve this message.
Welcome back to the second half of La Antenna podcast. And as we mentioned to you before, we're having a special guest, and unbelievably so, an amazing guest that is actually a fan of Frosinone. So I'll just let the mic off to you. Welcome to our podcast, Ferdinando.
Thank you so much, guys. Fernando. All right. Either go by Lazio Close as my comedy page or Kickin Cleats as my footy page. So people might get confused. They say, is he a Lazio fan? Is he a Frosinone fan? I'm a little both. I'm a little in the middle. So sorry, guys. Not sorry, but yeah.
No, Tell us more about, like, we'll dive into a little bit also what your pages are all about and whatnot. But first, tell us why Lazio and or why Frosinone. Well, I can almost assume, but I want you to tell us all about it.
So I was actually born in Ferdinando, which is like 15 minutes away from Frosinone. So obviously right there off the hop, that's kind of like a Frosinone point there. Obviously my nonno being a big Frosinone fan and a Lazio fan. So it's a really hard divide.
You was both as well? Is that what you're saying?
Yes. So that's where I got it from, right? It's from my nonno. So it's funny because the whole family's divided, right? So we got, once a couple people in the family are Milan fans, some are Inter fans, some are the one club that starts with a J. I don't want to say the name, you know what I mean? The one that we kind of despise, most people despise, right? So yeah, I think my nonno and I are like the truly kind of true fans in the state where we're from, Jugeria, Provincial Lazio and stuff like that. So that's where I kind of got it from.
So we didn't say anything where you are actually right now, but are you in Zona Ciociara right now, or where?
No. So I'm just it's a random place, but yeah, Barrie, Ontario. Like it's got to be an hour, 45 minutes. Like we kind of discussed before the pod. Depends how fast or slow you're driving. If you're driving like nonno, about 2 hours from Toronto. But yeah, so that's where I am right now. And again, random place for an Italian just like me from Frosinone, but. And it's a good quiet spot up here for sure.
It's a quite nice town, actually, just north of Toronto, right off the Lake Simcoe. Very nice.
Yeah,
very nice. We get a lot of snow too up there, don't you?
Oh yeah, lots. Yeah.
So Matt, just kicking whenever you want, but tell us more about your pages.
Yeah, so it's funny story. So my comedy page came first about a couple years ago. I just started doing, small videos here and there. And then I started doing some, theater shows with some comedians. Sorry, the dog's all excited. We got some visitors here.
I thought he was laughing.
Yeah. Someone said the J word and they start freaking out. I kind of train them. If they see train
them well.
Like an emblem, they start freaking out. See black and white, they start freaking out. So yeah, sorry. So comedy page, again, just could start off small and then connected with some big time comedians in Toronto and Vaughan and kind of just had fun with it. And then if anybody knows me, I love soccer. I live, breathe it, whatever you want to call it. And people were like, well, we're getting kind of confused. You're putting a lot of soccer stuff, putting the comedy stuff. Like, why don't you make your own page? And I said, okay, that's a great idea, right? Like I thought, just try something new. I was kind of scared at first, but so hence Kickin Cleats. And at the time, I was really having a tough time with the name. Sorry. And so my nonna at the time was living with my grandparents, and she was kind of cleaning up the house, and we're doing renovations too, and it was a mess. And there was a pair of shoes on the ground, and she was tripping over them, pair of cleats. Sorry. And she starts swearing off, oh, you son of a, and then she kicks him so hard. I'm not even, no word of a lie, hand of God. She kicks him so hard, puts a dent in one of the doors. And that's where I got Kickin Cleats. It was from my nonna. So she's still bugging me for the royalties and the naming rights and everything like that. But one day, hopefully, when it gets bigger, then we'll talk. So that's, and yeah, just start from there, from transfer rumors to the weekly NCTV show with York United that I do with the fans and the players and stuff. So it's growing. I plan to get it more bigger. There's different ideas and projects on the way. So yeah. So
correct me if I'm wrong, just for whomever is listening from different parts of the world, but York United is part of like the secondary league within Canada, and it's under Premier League, Canadian League, or no?
Yeah, so it's the Canadian Premier League. You can kind of say if it's a second tier of MLS, but not really. Like it's kind of its own league. But obviously, we have a lot of players that come from there that are going to Europe, that are going to MLS. So it is a great league that's up and coming. But but yeah, that's where your York United is from the CPL. Yes.
Yeah, though I kind of know it because me living closer to Hamilton, following the Forge, which is the
You
Hamilton.
got the Forge, yeah.
I was about to say.
Great team, by the way. You guys I can't take anything away from you guys. You guys rightly deserve the winning the league this past season. So yeah, they're a great team. Our enemies, but I got to give respect to them. They're great.
Exactly.
There's a bit of a derby going on, a little CPL derby on the podcast.
Yes. Oh yeah.
That's true. That's true. And that closed like not too long ago, actually, with that finale against the Toronto, and they ended up losing against Toronto, but it was like that close to winning against them. I can't remember if it was the final of the league just after like a year and a half ago, just after COVID, when they had to stop and recoup it or whatnot. But anyways,
Yeah.
so. No, I love your page, love your graphics. So
Thank you.
Tell us all about the graphics. It's like unbelievable. It's like a
Thank you.
level page.
Oh, thank you. Honestly, like thank you so much. Honestly, like I no word of a lie, it's all self-taught. No schooling, no nothing. I just got really into it. Like it got to the point where I have like friends or girlfriends in the past, like, you're always on your phone, but like I'm working. Like, I've had people like literally like walk out, and I don't mean to be rude or anything like that. But when I get sucked in, I get sucked in, right? So anytime I see anything, or I do kind of like kind of a neat thing, kind of like a what if, so like a Marvel multi-universe kind of theme. So for example, I did one with Immobile. What if he went to Miami, just because of, and there's always a story to it. I love stories, so I love to make my own story. So long story short, his wife calls the shots. I mean, through the TikTok videos, through everything, his agent, whatever you want to say, she wears the pants and controls the zipper, and he's okay with that. So when they go on vacation, they always go to Miami. She's got family in Miami. Everyone's saying that, he might end up in TFC. I don't see it happening just because of weather, the wage, the lifestyle. I think he's more suited there. But again, we'll see. It's more in the distant future, not so distant because he's 32. But yeah, and there's other ones on the way that I've created. So, but yeah, no, thank you. It's just, again, it's just more of an addictive hobby, let's say, and it's a very creative hobby. So I love doing it. It's great.
Well, it's like everyone, like even Matt, as a newborn Genoano, no, but meaning like not being Italian and whatnot. So he's like your foreigner that became Genoano and so on. Mm-hmm. You get that addiction, and it's funny because when you're from the outside, you look at it like, oh, that's so weird. I haven't really followed too much like all the other sports here in North America, Matt, but. Do you find that's actually a good question to ask you, but you find that type of followership, that type of love, that type of, like how Fernando said that you're like addicted to the point of you're not even watching people anymore in the room and they have to leave because you're not even like paying attention to them. Does that happen?
I mean,
with other type of sports?
Well, I mean, I suppose I guess it does. I mean, but it is different though. I mean, you start paying attention to something like Genoa or what's going on in Serie B or XYZ, and it's a little bit harder to, split your attention amongst all the other things that are going on. I'm wearing a Knicks sweatshirt right now. I love my Knicks, but at the same time, like, could probably spend more time looking at what's going on with Genoa than with the Knicks, to be honest with you right now, which is kind of insane, actually saying that out loud, but it's a fact. So it can definitely happen. And I mean, what a time too, by the way, to be a Frosinone fan. I mean, Ferdinando, I think I have to be honest, there was definitely almost a curiosity, at least until maybe a few weeks ago, and saying, what's going on here? Like, Frosinone top of the league, and they're still top of the league. And today, of course, they're still top of the league. They're 7 points. They're actually 9 points clear of Genoa right now. I mean, tell us about the season so far. What have you seen? Is this a surprise on the Frosinone side too? Is this something you think was the team was well set up for? Like, how did we get here?
I think it was a little surprising, but at the same time, not really, because now Grosso has got that little bit of time under his belt. At first, it was kind of dicey. He had some pretty big, not huge shoes to fill because it was Nesta, right? Nothing to. I was really excited when Nesta came on the helm and then it didn't work out, and I was kind of panicking. Okay, what are we going to do now? We're going to go back to City Chi. Oh, you know what I mean. So when Grosso came, I was okay. Let's see how it goes. And then now he's kind of. I see how the players are around him and they glow with him now. I've even talked to some of my family members, my cousins and stuff like that. And he's a people person. People just gravitate towards him. And he talks to them and say, listen, like, what do you want to see at the club? Like, just your opinion, or if any changes I can make. Obviously, I can, work wonders or whatever. What can I do? And he's really part of that community. And so to me right now, I got to be honest, I don't really see it as a surprise now. I think it's well deserved. The only thing we need to do is not be like the Toronto Maple Leafs and put our foot off the gas and just waste that kind of lead. But I think we need to take one game at a time and just be aggressive. And I think Grosso's he seems like a teddy bear on the outside, but I think inside he's got that fighting spirit. So I think it's a great combination between coach and the players.
It's so interesting hearing you say that about like the continuity too. And I know like if Fabry probably knows where or thinks he knows where I'm going with this, but like with obviously Genoa, we've not had continuity for a while, and once again, are not exactly in that place with our managers. But it's something I, in the back of my mind, of the last few weeks, have been thinking about a little bit because, we're going through these phases. We're bringing in new players. We're trying different things. We're kind of putting different manager styles in there. We're now on, again, another manager. It seems like it has to be a manager change every 6 or 7 months for us. But I worry a little bit, like, even if we were able to make it out of Serie B, are we really in a place where we're stable enough to stay in Serie A? I'm not sure. And I think it's kind of interesting to hear you talk about Frosinone. Really, one of the key successes is they've kind of found the right balance with that kind of style and that direction. And now it's paying dividends, even though maybe it's taken a couple of years to get back up to Serie A. So, well, assuming that happens, of course. But
right.
Yeah.
Right.
Actually, let me add to that. Like, I'm just going to put you on the spot with this type of question, but do you think there is a long bench enough or that type of longevity that Frosinone can withstand this terrific, actually, from what I'm hearing from all across the league, is like one of the most competitive Serie Bs ever. And you can see that you lose 2 games, you're down like almost to playouts, and you win 3 games, and then you're almost close to playoffs. So my point is, a lot of times critics talk about, you need to have like that type of bench that is long enough in order to have like either because you have injuries or because you need some turnover or whatnot. Does Frosinone have that?
That's tough to say because I was really excited this lineup too. I know we got Insigne in the off season and he still kind of needs to find his kind of rhythm there. I want to play it safe and say I'm not too sure. It's tough because anything could happen, right? We don't have that kind of super depth, right? Like between, like you said, injuries, suspensions, and that's why I even though we're still at first, I'm still nervous. Every game, I still take a game at a time because anything could happen and we could just fall like that, right? So right now, I don't think we do, and I think we got to play it safe. Take one game at a time, but at the same time be aggressive, right? And treat every game as the game, right? So,
well, definitely the 9 points that Matt mentioned before is definitely a great cushion, at least for long term itself.
Well, at least between us and them. I mean, I know Regina's behind with 4, so it's not. But I mean, I guess one of the things that's interesting too, like I feel recently, I'm used to seeing Frosinone put 2 or more up in many of the matches that they're playing, but also you look at the goals allowed, it's only 10. It's the lowest in the league. Like, do you think that's almost like the backbone of the team is sort of the defensive organization, or is that reading into the statistics a little bit too much with it?
Yeah, a little bit in the statistics side of things. I mean, I don't know, to be honest, like I could be a little harsh with Frosinone. Like I think I can be a little bit. I want a little bit more, to be honest. Like, again, I'm playing it safe. Again, anything could happen. We lost Gatti last season, which again, I felt like he's still not ready at Juve. If we had him back for like a season-long loan, that would have been nice. But I mean, it is what it is.
Yeah.
So I mean, I'm not totally happy. I mean, I wish there could be a little bit more. So yeah, I mean, with that's the area that I'm most concerned about, because you start getting lazy and goals starting to come racking up even more, or whatever. Then we're sitting outside of playoffs, and then we're looking at this interview as, remember the when we were first place, and you know what I mean?
Yeah,
So
I know. I know. It's also like one of those things you start talking about. It's like, wait a minute, did I have to say that out loud publicly? Like, did I just now like cost my team 3 points all of a sudden? Like, I'm slowly feeling the jinx effect as we've had with some of our Italian guests,
especially in the
past. That's the one thing that, like, we can tell you're not Italian because you're putting these predictions up and you're not bothered by potentially cursing your team, and then 2 days later go by and all of a sudden Genoa lose and I feel responsible. So
yeah.
And one thing I was looking at, like, if you look at the form itself, I'm seeing like it's obviously positive anyways. Better, like, for whomever is trying to catch up to them, it's better than before. So negative for Frosinone, meaning I was continuing to see the 5, those standings when you see the last 5 matches, and I was seeing these 5 green check marks.
Like, win.
So lately I've seen a lot more ties happening, and let's talk about quickly. We'll talk about quickly about the match against Regina in a second, but I was seeing a lot of these ties, except like that win against Perugia, which was a little bit fortunate in a way because of how the match went out and whatnot. But, then you saw the Cagliari, which, mind you, Cagliari is like catching up a lot, the Sudtirolo one, and last one from Sunday against Pisa, the 0-0, the dreadful, the 0-0 stalemate type of thing. But wow, that, like, everyone was expecting an incredible or an important match. The Frosinone, actually I should say the Regina Frosinone match itself, but away 3-0 against your closest, runner-up and whatnot. What happened there? Were they on drugs, or was it Regina just to, sucked at, planning the match against you guys?
I think, okay, I'm going to say this. Any Southern team shouldn't be up here with us, right? I mean, it should be you guys, Parma and Frosinone. Regina and Bari, I can't even stand. So yeah, I think it was. If I get heat for this, we don't need any Calabrese teams in Serie A. I'm sorry. If I gotta get heat, I get heat. Whatever. Not to mean no offense, but no, just because we're used to seeing Regina and Bari, fighting in these lower leagues, and now, yeah, okay, we kind of got away with that, but I still kind of feel threatened by them a little bit, just because, again, you've got these players they're coming up. Zaghi's doing a great job with these guys regardless, right? So, I mean, I can't take anything away from them. I mean, it is what it is with that. So next time we face them, we're always going to be prepared. Always. I don't care what anybody says, win or whatever. We always got to be prepared, because, I mean, at some point we're going to be predictable, and people are going to start kind of catching us on, right? And start reading the cards. And that's when we start, dropping a lot of points, tying more games and stuff like that. So dislike them, but I'm still worried about them at the same time.
So essentially we have a lot of points. The next one up is going to be against Genoa. So in Genova, it's
scary.
It's gonna actually, I'll be honest with you, it's probably scary for both sides.
Yes.
Before I talk about the match itself, the fact of now that Genoa, as Matt mentioned before, so we changed our coach, which comes from Primavera, so very little experience on the professional side and whatnot. But nevertheless, that's now the 5th manager or 6th former world champion, now all in Serie B, which is like phenomenal.
Really
and
great.
Love it. So what what does this Gilardino effect look from your side of things?
Like I said, scary. Just because he's a winner, he's a fighter. I've always admired him. I was always a big fan of Gilardino, even though he never played the teams that he played for Milan for a bit, so kind of a Milan fan in a sense because of my Zios played in the Primavera back in the day. But that guy hustles. He hustles. He works. And I can only imagine him being a coach and how that he's going to transfer the team. Obviously, he's got a lot of work to do, but. And again, I don't mean to like be biased or anything towards you guys, but I feel like when it comes to match, the personality wise, I feel like Gilardino has that little more of that edge. Like, let's say if Gilardino had that more time with Genoa and had, that same amount of time with Grosso, I think they would be I'd be even more scared. But even the pitch itself, I love that pitch. That is a scary pitch to go play there. Ooh. So now that's the one more thing we have to kind of worry. And that's one thing that Grosso in the locker room is going to mention the guys, hey, listen, like I got my paisan on the other end. At the end of the day, we still got to win, but we got to be really careful and really got to make sure we got to be super, super aggressive for this match.
Good that you're saying that about the pitch, about, going to what we call it, the Tempio, the temple, which is the Ferraris, and with our 20,000 and whatnot season tickets, just for whomever's interested, anyways. Also in and around Genova, the club has put good prices, like they call it, like the Christmas type of deal or whatnot. So they want to, embrace and take on more people to want to go and watch the match and whatnot. So. I'm not too sure how many. What's your average followership coming from Frosinone in your mind? Like if you'd have to put a guess on how many would come to the Ferraris.
I know the stadium holds half, so I believe it's 10,000. Last time I checked, it gets bumping. Like I know there's quite a bit. I know with like the bigger games, it's pretty packed. No, I don't want to say, hey, we're sold out every game and everything like that. And that's not what I'm hearing back home, but it's moderate. Like it's pretty decent. I heard they want to. It's tough. I heard they want to extend the stadium and stuff like that, but it's just where it is economically. It's tough.
Yeah.
But it's above. I would say above average. I want to say like it's pretty decent. It's a good crowd. They're really good. So let's hope they expand that, right?
And you think the followership would go and travel a lot also outside, like on the road type of thing?
I think so. Yeah. I mean, there's a couple games that I've seen, like my family members like on their stories. They see like their Cuva, like their side on away games. I'm surprised. Like, yeah, they do travel quite a bit. So yeah, no, they're pretty. I can't say anything bad. Like they make it for it. I mean, now that they see that they've committed to this team since day one, and now they see this kind of progression, and I was like, okay, let's kind of roll up our sleeves. And let's do our part as fans. That's the least that we can do, right? So yeah, no, it's really good.
No, definitely. So I think between the 20,000 of the season tickets, the possibility of new people coming to watch the match because of good deals and whatnot, plus you guys coming up, we're probably looking at 26,000 viewers.
No doubt.
So it would be quite interesting, whatnot.
Yeah, no doubt.
So Matt, what do you think about the match with Frosinone?
Well, we are definitely like-minded with Fernando and being worried about the match for sure. I mean, Frosinone are on a ridiculous run of form. Like, I don't care if it's only been, of the last 5, they've drawn 3 of them. If you go back 10, they've still won 7 of them. So, like, I think there's a lot to wonder. We obviously didn't have exactly the best performance at Ascoli. Also, some Lazio contingent over there too, as I understand from the fans there. But I think in a way, like it was maybe we can get past it. It was a pretty quick succession of games with the midweek game as well last week. I don't know. It's weird. I actually was looking this up. I do this sometimes because I think it's kind of funny. There are betting lines on the games in Serie A or Serie B in the US, and somehow Genoa are a little bit favored to win the match from BetMGM. I think they're like minus like 125 or something like that, which I would not have thought at all actually going into this one. I would have probably put more of an emphasis on Frosinone coming out and winning the match. I still think that they probably are the favorite to get the result even away at the Ferraris. And of course, I think one of the things that Fabry was kind of alluding to before with being a little bit scared at home, not only has our home form not been great, and we hadn't won, I don't think, until Giordino's first game, which is insane, by the way, that we hadn't won a single home game all year until he took over. But like, we have a bad performance again in front of this fan base. It's not going to be good. And I know that Frosinone is top of the league right now, but I don't think that it's going to be one of those things where if we walk away with anything less than 3 points or a really well-earned draw, that it's not going to have a pretty large amount of kind of I'm worried about the negative sentiment side of it, I suppose you could say. So I don't know, Fabry, what you think. I kind of do think that the match on the weekend, kind of just want to put it past us and think we can maybe do better this weekend at home, but it was worrying to see that regression immediately after seeing a positive result. So
I was watching a podcast from Italian one, and there's I think he's the son of a former president of Genoa, Fossati as the last name. In his mind, it's going to be a clear 3-0 for Genoa. We're going to go to the predictions a little later, but I mean, he was very convinced. He's saying, I'm gonna put my face to it. I'm gonna pay breakfast to whomever wants to, put me on this and stuff like that. Anyways, what I wanted to say in defense of Gilardino, besides the fact that he has brought a struggling Primavera that had relegated, it was unfortunate from our side that both the first team and the Primavera dropped down to relegated down to the second division, but he brought this struggling Primavera to be the top of the league of Primavera 2, and with his innovations and whatnot. And as Fernando said before, like, he has a strong mentality and people type of skill and whatnot, which is the part that is perhaps, again, to Fernando, what he said before, is probably the most scary part of what you don't want to see from your opponent, and that's same to what Gross is doing with Frosinone. Mm-hmm. But again, let's quickly look at the numbers. I know, to Matt's point, it's only been like 2 matches in a very short range. So he came on, I think, if I'm not mistaken, correct me if I'm wrong, Matt, but he came on a Tuesday, when the first match was on a Thursday.
Yep, I didn't know you're right about that. And
then he had the Sunday match. So in those 2 matches, only I want to stick to those numbers because I like them. 0 goals conceded, and we're starting to see, okay, first, fine, one was a tie, but the other one was a nice win, 2-0. Mm-hmm. So we're not, again, still seeing a lot of big numbers, and he did say that there's a lot of things that they need to be working on. But, even though Frosinone is the first as the best defense, Genoa is the second. So let's not forget that, too.
I mean, it's right. I think, like, the one thing, I don't think anyone was really upset, even in the Blessin era, of the way we lined up defensively, So it wouldn't be surprising for this match to actually be a fairly, maybe not a carbon copy of what we saw at Ascoli, but it might look kind of similar, where there's not a whole lot in it, maybe not a whole lot of chances.
Are you afraid of Frosinone to the point that it's going to be like a battle where everybody's dropping to the floor? Oh my God, my knee! Oh my, like wasting time. And what do you think, Fernando?
Yeah, it's going to be.
Is that Frosinone style? Is that Frosinone style, like to do those type of, like the typical Italian, oh my God, I'm so hurt because of this,
Unfortunately, like I've seen it 1 or 2, yeah, but I think, yeah, I hope it doesn't happen as much. Like I've caught a few times. A lot of people have noticed, but I've caught a few times. I've done them. Like, it's not really. I don't like that in general. Like I hate that. but I know it's going to be a scrappy match. At the end of the day, there's going to be cards flying. There's going to be cleats flying. It's going to be scrappy. Hey, who knows? Maybe, Grosso and Jaldine are going to give, the light, kiss on the cheeks, and by, halftime, they're going to be at each other's throats, right? So it is going to be a battle for sure. 100%. There's going to be some heat for sure.
Well, if I may say, you're saying cards are flying, but I'm looking at the last 11 matches for Frosinone, and I'm seeing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 matches, so almost half, where your opponent is ending their match with less than 11 men.
So yeah, we've I've noticed that too. Yeah, so I've there's something going on. I don't know what Gross was saying in the locker room or something. There's something going on. Maybe some molecules or whatever. Not necessarily some molecules or something. But yeah, hey, it's tough to say. Maybe they Genoa might end up with a red or a couple of yellows, even with us too. Like, again, it is going to get heated. So like, I wouldn't doubt that maybe Genoa would get a red, or even us, right? I can bet there's at least going to be a red, at least. It's going to be a heated thing. So, yeah, we drive them to it, which again, it could be a tactic, it could be whatever. I'm still trying to read that a little bit. I try not to pay attention to that too much, but I've noticed the trend a little bit. So I hope it stays a little bit clean at some point, but there's going to be some cards on the table.
Some blood happening.
Yeah, some song for sure. Yeah.
So how did you see the last match against Pisa?
Yeah, that's a game we should have won. Seeing how kind of Pisa's at the table, I think we kind of put her foot off the gas a little bit. I was a little disappointed because, again, this is a prime example that, hey, we get a couple more of these, then again, we're next thing you know, at blink of an eye, we could be, out of the playoff race, or barely in the playoff race. I mean, you look at us in a sense that, okay, we got promoted the first time in 2020, the 2015, 2016 season. Then we went back down. Then we went back up in 2018. But I believe the year before, 2017 playoff, we got so cocky and we lost the playoff against Capri. And same thing that happened to the final when we lost against Spezia, I believe in the 1920 season. So I hope that history doesn't repeat itself. And this is where we go, it's just a draw. It's just a draw. Hey, guess what happened in Italy? Hey, it's just a draw. It's just a draw. We didn't make the World Cup. So let's hope we don't take those bad habits, right? So again, that's especially Pisa. That's a team that we should have won against for sure, 100%.
Well, if I have to look at the form for Pisa, sure, in the table they're below and whatnot, but they have been recuperating quite a bit. I remember them being last, and now they're 8th.
Yep.
Just like they're only like 3 points.
That transformation is kind of even also. Venezia have kind of made a similar jump in the past several weeks. It's amazing. Both of those sides were at the bottom for a little bit there.
Yeah, and I was looking actually at the trend that they're actually pulling out, and they have the same amount of points that you guys pulled out in the last 5 matches. So I guess, like, I don't know, it's a reborn Pisa. Let's not forget that Pisa was like one of the last contenders that did not make it to Serie A based on the playoffs and whatnot, but that's why we were all surprised of the low form that they had in the first part of the season. But they're waking up, so I'm not trying to downsize the possibility of that the Frosinone should have won and whatnot. But I think that Pisa has become more of what they were last year rather than what they showed in the first half of the season.
Yeah, I agree. No, for sure. I agree for sure. Yeah.
So Matt, shoot.
Well, I am going to kind of continue my semi-pessimistic predictions. Well, maybe knock on wood while I'm doing it, but I think it will be a draw. Actually, I think it will end 1-1. I believe we'll see from Gila. I don't know, Fabry, if you see this too. I don't have as keen of an eye all the time on the formation sheet, but I think we've been doing more of like a 4-3-3 lately with him. I think it'll be a positive game. I don't believe this is a game where either team are necessarily specifically looking to just park the bus and walk away with a point or a positive result or whatever you want to say. But I do kind of wonder a little bit. We've not been quite as sharp still in the attacking third. I do think we're kind of absent a couple of players. It's seeming more obvious without Payac and Ekuban. Our attack just has not really had that kind of sharpened into it, even with Coda and some of the other players in the lineup. So I think it'll end 1-1. I think it'll be a competitive match. I think it's going to be one of those ones where you're watching, and by the end of the match, everyone's probably going to want the whistle to just blow because it's going to, like, anything can happen type of a thing. But that's how I see it. And I think the goal scorer, at least on the Genoa side, I like what we've seen lately from Ughello. I think he may get on the score sheet.
So Ughello, is he going to be the one scoring first, or is he going to tie to a score within order?
I think Genoa might score first in this match.
Okay.
So
Fernando, how do you see the match? What do you predict? You can tell me both sides. Like, usually what I have is like the heart says one thing and the mind says something else. So
yeah. The heart, the Frosinone heart says 1-0 Frosinone. However, it will be scrappy. I feel like this is going to be like an 89th, 82nd goal. Like you guys are going to make us work. You guys are going to make us work because, again, Giardino's he's gonna come in flying. He's gonna come in hot. But at the same time, he's gonna study our moves. He's gonna study because he knows obviously we're in first, and he's not gonna take us lightly. He's gonna just keep on, unleashing waves and waves of attack, and especially the formation you guys are using. It's very attack mindful, in my opinion. So, but I think at the end, I think we're just barely gonna squeeze through. We're gonna have an injury or two as well. I just feel it. So I think 1-0. I think 1-0, just barely though. And I'll just be like, oof, like that was a close one, right? You guys are gonna make us work for sure.
So you're claiming you're gonna get the 3 points, and in the Ferraris at Genova, and who's gonna be your goal scorer?
I honestly, I can't even pick a name right now. Like, it's just maybe someone random like Torre. Like, I don't know. I could even be a header from one of the boys flooding in the box. Like, I'm not too sure. It's I wish I had kind of like that go-to, but right now I could go with anybody at this point. Even hey, throwing Grosso, he might just throw it in. Too. They'll both score the goals for us, right? For each team. But yeah, I don't know. I can't really pick a name. I think it's just as long as a goal gets in there, I'm happy.
So before I give my predictions, I actually forgot to ask you a question. Like, what should Genoa be aware of from the Frosinone side? Like, be scared, and what should we be scared of or be confident on? So what's your forte and what's your weakest? What's your strongest point and what's your weakest part?
I think our strongest point is again keeping that possession, keeping everything organized and tight. The only thing is the weakness is that, again, when we put our foot off the gas, it's hard to recuperate. It's hard for us to kind of build up that play, and we kind of lose ourselves in that miscommunication or like that. So we're good when we're good, but we hit a little pebble or something like that, then we're kind of in shambles, right? So I think this is what Grosso's job is, obviously being a manager, seeing that from that Pisa game. He took everything in consideration with, yes, Pisa climbing up the table. But at the end of the day, I think he's still frustrated from that. I mean, having said that, yes, they're improving, but yeah, I think he still wanted that win. So right now, I think he's going to overanalyze which I hope it doesn't bite us in the butt, but he's going to be like, okay, no slip-ups, because Genoa's a type of team, I think, in my opinion, that once they see that slip-up, boom, they'll go for that opportunity. right? So if we just keep
Yeah.
it consistent, I think we'll be good. But again, it's all up to you guys to see. Hopefully you don't read us. So let's hope not.
Now, based on what you just said, and also what I was thinking, I was looking at some previous matches, and except the Palermo match, which you won, the only other match where, and I'm talking here about ball possession, the only other match where you kind of did not edge over the possession itself was against Cittadella, and we know very well how that ended with a 1-0 for Cittadella. You're saying that, and it's true, that Frosinone usually wins on the ball possession, but Genoa is quite known as well for the ball possessions themselves. So if that might also be a factor of of losing that gas that you were talking about and whatnot, it could be reinforcing what I'm thinking, where I think that the week that we are going to have Gilardino being able to speak more to the team, reaching out to them and whatnot, I think as we had a strong result from Südtirol during the week, but then we had some sort of like for many considered a pause against Ascoli, which you guys can confirm that too, that playing at Ascoli is definitely not easy anyways. I think that it's going to edge towards Genoa. I'm not going to say it's a tripleta, as I said with the Cittadella match, because we saw what that happened to us anyways as well. But no, I think that Genoa is going to have the Gilardino effect. I really believe in the Gilardino effect. I really strongly believe that also the ball possession is going to make Frosinone suffer a lot more. How do I see that result happening? Obviously, there's the heart that's going to come a little bit edging over my brain, but I want to see, I actually do think that it's going to be like something around the 2-0 or 1-0 for Genoa. It's going to be suffered. It's not going to be an easy walk. But I think it's going to be one of those where what everybody's been hoping for, that Genoa comes back on the play, because obviously, even though they're saying do not look at the standings and where we are, because it's going to make things a lot more, tough, because you're trying to recuperate. But the truth is, we do need to recuperate. And the more we drop points, and the more it's going to be tough. Yeah. And it's not only, even though a lot of people are saying, oh, let's not worry anymore about the first spot. Others are saying, oh, let's not even worry about the second. Let's just focus for the playoffs. No way. I'm not going to worry about focusing for the playoffs. Yeah. I want the first two. Actually, I always wanted to win the league, but I want the first two.
And I think it's more than just like the vanity of that. Like, this league's too competitive. You need to lock it in. You need to guarantee you're going up. I could maybe concede not winning the league and finishing second and getting an automatic promotion, but I don't want to be in those promotion places. No way. Absolutely not.
We've seen, as also what Ferdinando said a little bit earlier, also from the Frosinone's perspective, is like we've seen a lot of big teams, big squads, well, for City B anyways, where they were actually even arrived third, but then they never even ended up going up in Serie A. And you see teams that were, what is it now, 6 down, so that's the 8th spot, and maybe they got promoted. I think that's what happened last year too with Cremonese or something like that, right?
Yeah, Cremonese, it was just, these guys came out of nowhere. Like, it was nuts. So, I'm just going to
hold it. What a throwback too. I feel like they've not been in the first division since the early 90s or something.
I know, haven't seen Cremonese forever. Anyways, having said that, it's a good differences in seeing the results and whatnot. So before we wrap up, first of all, I wanted to thank you very much for your time, your availability. It's amazing. We've been talking for a while, and I was definitely looking forward for our match to happen, to have you on, as we talked a lot early in the season. Yeah. And of course, you were like the second last match of the first of the first leg. But anyways, so thank you again for coming to be our guest. We'll definitely have to have you on the second side, the second leg, which, if I'm not mistaken, will probably be in sometime in April, May, anyways. But
Yeah,
anyways, we'll still
about
keep
right.
in contact. So, two things. So, how do people reach out to you, and what platforms can they find you?
Yeah, so starting from my comedy page, so you can find me on Instagram at Lazio Close. So Lazio, Lazio, Close, Klose, just like the German soccer player. That's my comedy page. Kickin Cleats, you can find me on Instagram, so Kickin__ Cleats, and then Kickin Cleats, all one word, on Twitter, and Kickin Cleats again on my TikTok as well. So you guys can find me on there. And then YouTube's coming up soon. I know everyone's giving me a tough time for that. So any York United fans as well too, feel free to come by to the games, be part of the NCTV experience. I'll do interviews with everybody and make everyone feel welcome. So looking forward to seeing everyone at the games. Everybody's welcome. So
And one more question around the Frosinone side. Do you know if there's any Toronto, North American type of club or whatnot, or are you like your sole representative of the Frosinone that you know of?
sorry, what was that? You kind of cut out there at the
like
end.
a fan club, you mean?
Yeah, like a fan club, North American type of thing on Frosinone side. Is there any?
Yeah, so there's a Leone di, I believe it's Leone di Toronto. So that's like a Frosinone club. I'm more on the Lazio Toronto side, but we share the same place, like where they play the bocce and everything like that. So those guys come around. A few, obviously a lot fewer, but shout out to those guys. I've met a couple of those guys, really great, and it's kind of a friendly thing between the Lazio fans and the Frosinone fans. No hate or anything like that. So they're great. They're a great club. Great no club, I want to say. They're a great group of guys. So yeah.
And last but not least, Serie A. If Frosinone makes it, derby, Frosinone Lazio, who are you siding for?
I'm gonna cut this kit in half and I'm gonna sew the other Lazio. It's tough. Like, I mean, I still can't. Everyone's giving me grief about it still. I can't pick a side. My Nona's the same way. So every time they play, the few times that they played, we always say, we make a joke and say, hey, they get together on the training ground and say, listen, let's just do like 0-0, or let's try to kick out Roma or do. So I think that's the kind of game plan that we do. So yeah, I got to be that guy and say I got to go with both. I can't pick one.
I believe it. I get it.
All right. So thank you again very much for coming again as a guest. We really did appreciate you having on. The insights of Frosinone, fantastic. Let's hope for a great game no matter what the results.
Yes, 100%. 100%.
And enjoyable and not too many of like, oh my God, this hurts so much type of thing.
I hope not. Honestly, that stuff's got to stop. But yeah, I hopefully it's a great game and you guys got a lot more to fight for. So I can see where the edge comes from, right? Again, from the stadium to the manager. I mean, if we lose, hey, I'll be like, what can we do? I mean, we gotta study you guys and hopefully we can beat you guys again. So for sure.
Absolutely. So thanks again. Thank you everybody for listening to our podcast again. Once again, drop a comment, like and whatnot on all platforms like Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. And you can definitely listen to us on any platforms for your podcast of your preference. So once again, talk to you next week with another special guest. And as usual, and as always, Forza Genoa.
Forza Genoa.
You've listened to La Lanterna, a spotlight on Italian football, a podcast powered by Genuani Si Resta. Thank you for listening and see you next week.